Hello and welcome back to another review. My name is Astrofigures, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Age of the Primes, the 13 Quintus Prime. This figure transforms in 15 steps and is one of the primes. Looking onto the back of the packaging, we can see some of the product shots. We can see the relic here, the Ember Stone. Pretty excited to look at that and see there is some little paint detail on there as well. Here we have Quintus in his kind of space Cybertronian form, which looks pretty cool. And then the figure there as well. I do like the kind of robe design that he has going on, and I'm interested to see what that looks like in hand. It also looks like he can probably store the Ember Stone in his cockpit there, which is pretty cool. Without further ado, let's hop into the review. Here's Quintus Prime out of his package and in his robot mode, and I have to say, he's a really cool transformer. Starting off with the detail of this figure, he's mostly in a green color scheme with different green coming off of him. Starting off towards the top of the figure with the head sculpt, very cool, very unique crown looking figure there. He's got 6 different eyes, which is awesome, and he does have this light piping in the back of his head, so you can get some really cool kind of green menacing eyes coming through that kind of break up a lot of the darker green in there. Along with the head sculpt, there is a little bit of these kind of more metallic green, which we'll see throughout the figure's other parts as well. Jumping down to the torso here, you have this kind of emblem, sort of robe type thing that kind of continues throughout the rest of the figure, which looks awesome. You have the middle of his chest there, which has the Ember Stone poking out a little bit, which we'll take a look at when we look at the accessories. You also have a little bit of purple there on the sides of the figure, and this kind of recess in the chest that goes up into kind of like a more gray, which is pretty cool. I like that. Jumping down to his arms, again, just continuing on with the different kind of color scheme, the green and the metallic green. There is the continuation of more purple in the form of these gems on him, and on his kind of forearm there as well, there's more purple kind of poking out. Looking at his arms, we do have a little bit of kibble here. I don't mind it so much, and it kind of keeps in line with the robe aesthetic that he has going on, where you have kind of those robes that have bigger around the forearms and kind of droop down, so I kind of think of it like that. Speaking of kibble, this is the back of the figure. There is kind of nothing there poking out besides, again, these kind of things. Looking down, he does have 4 arms, so you have the addition of these 2 kind of gray, more brownish arms here. You have a little bit of a kind of a tendril going on, forming kind of a hand, which is cool. Coming down to the bottom of the figure, you have the more robe aesthetic coming out, and you can see here, we'll just lift the robe pieces, his legs are in this kind of translucent green, allowing it to disappear within the robe. Obviously, he still needs feet to stand, so that's where you kind of have to have a little bit of a way for his feet to kind of disappear, which I do like. And looking here, so the robes actually are in a bunch of different colors. So we have that dark green. It's a little bit of darker than the green that is on the rest of the figure. We do have this metallic green coming through, and then a kind of slightly different one. It does have a little bit of runes on it, which we can also see on the back, and these runes here, which is pretty cool. And I'm just looking at his feet. They're kind of frog-like, which I do think is really cool. You do have this kind of piece here. This does end up being the cockpit and the kind of Cybertronian mode. I do like the design of it with the kind of crystal-like stuff coming out. And it keeps in line with where the Ember Stone is, so the Ember Stone is in there. So overall, very cool design. We'll look at the actual accessories before we give her a score. So to get the accessory out of Quintus Prime here, you just kind of have to push on the gem piece in the middle of his chest just a little bit so that his cockpit piece will pop out, and you can kind of move it out the rest of the way. His Ember Stone pops out. You can see in here there is this kind of massive cavity now that is where your gem will go. As you can see now, there is this kind of gaping hole in him, but there is a little bit of green to kind of continue, so it's not like just a straight through. There is kind of like a green glow. Looking at the Ember Stone, it is in this translucent green color, and it does have the Quintus's kind of symbol there on red. Besides that is all in this translucent green. You can have him hold it in any of his arms, which you can see here. It is pretty cool to see him kind of holding the stone. There's not much really you can do besides hold it, but other than that, that is the only accessory that comes with him. I do, wish there might have been something else, but you know, this is what we got. Overall for score, we'll go with a 10. I do really like this design, and I don't see anything wrong with it. The colors are amazing. The only kibble again is on here, and it looks very passable. I don't have any problems with it. I do really like the robe design that they have going on with the feet and the translucent green that they're using to kind of hide away the feet. So everything here looks pretty cool. Let's move on to articulation. Now jumping into articulation of the figure, we'll start off with the head and we'll move our way down. So with the head sculpt, it is on a ball joint, but it is kind of difficult to move it around because of the piece in the back of the head sculpt. But you can look up pretty far and down just about to there. You can look left to right with the hands and arms here. You can do a full 360 on the arms. You can even go up a little bit with this piece, which is separate from his shoulder. So I can go up and down, and then you can go up and down with the elbow here. Looking at the elbow, you can twist it around just above 360. The elbow, you can go and bring it just about to 90 degrees there. The hands can move 360. And then his other set of hands can do up and down like so. And then you can twist the actual piece here to then kind of adjust how you want to do it. So you can then move it side to side or kind of flip it around, and he has kind of a different look compared to what it was. So you can do a little bit of different things with him, which I do really like. Moving down to the torso here region, so you can do full 360 of the waist, nothing restricting because there is no kibble. Looking at the legs, in order to move the legs, you're going to have to move around the robe, which is fine. It has in 5 different pieces, so you can lift up both of his sides here. They go up to about that high. The back goes up to that high, and then his front piece is split into 2 different pieces. So you can kind of have it all the way out. This is a better look at his legs here. It is a little bit of kind of regular plastic here on the back for transformation purposes, but overall most of it is in this translucent green, which looks pretty cool. So for here, you can kick him forwards this far, you can kick him backs to about here. His legs can go to do the splits, and then looking at his knees, you can do full 360 there. For the knee, you can also kick it back to about there, so it's just past 90. It did kind of pop out part of the transformation, just plug that back in. And then looking at the legs, or the feet, sorry, you can go and fully rock it fast, so he can kind of break his ankle, and then you can't rock it forwards, but you can rock it backwards, kind of on this weird hinge joint. So you can have him kind of levitating. That is it for the articulation. I would say probably, you know, I'll give it a nothing here. Is I have everything I need for the articulation, and we do have the addition of 2 more arms, which is pretty cool. So I'll give him a 10. Alright, let's get into transformation. We'll start off with the top of the figure, and then we'll move down to the feet. So transformation is pretty simple. I'm going to start off with the arms here. We're going to twist the shoulder piece up like so, and we'll repeat the process for here. Taking the arms, we're going to twist the just above the elbow so that you're facing out like so. And then again, we'll do that on this side. So now he's kind of like so. Next, we'll take these fin pieces on the elbows, and we'll kind of take them off, and then we'll take the hinge and put them over the hands. Do that on the other side. Now we're going to take our whole thing and kind of just move it upwards. We're going to take our shoulders, move those up as high as we can. Then what we're going to do is move position the rest of our arms so that they're kind of go around the figure. Push the head in just a little bit so he's looking up as high as he can. And kind of position the forearms and the hands until we can kind of connect. There's 2 different connection points on the forearms, and there's 2 different connection points on like the fin parts here. So just do so until you can kind of connect there, and then connect at the top. Once you have that plugged in, this is the top part of the figure. We'll put the hands, so put the hands, kind of twist them like so, twist them up, and then you're going to take these little kind of dot points right here, and you're going to put them into these slots here on the chest. So just bring those up, and they'll kind of just plop into place. And that's the top half of the figure done. For the bottom half, take the figure, twist the legs 360, so now the back of the legs are facing forwards. Then we'll lift up the kind of skirt pieces just to kind of give us as much room as possible. Take our legs here, and we're going to take these two pieces here, lift them up like so. They're going to peg into little tabs here. So just go like so, and just plop, tab that in like so. Do so on the other side as well. Straighten out the legs so they're kind of together. They don't connect together, but what we're going to do, there's two pieces here that are going to tab into these pieces here. So just bring that down, and you're going to tab that in like so. So now that it's connected, bring down your skirt pieces so they kind of overlap everything, and there we are. Transformation is complete. You can have a different transformation where you have the arms in a different position. You just kind of flip them around and then have them kind of like in this other position. It's not the biggest difference, but it is kind of a different mode, I guess. You know, you can kind of choose whichever one you prefer. Overall, it's a very simple transformation, so I think I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Looking at the alt mode now, as we can see, this is the back of the figure. So like I said, this is the cockpit piece of the ship. You have the kind of arms that create this really cool kind of unique design, and then you have these pieces that were hidden off the forearms that kind of add a little bit of mechanical detail there, which is nice. Like I said, you can have the arms and the second set of arms in different position. For me, I do prefer this position. Just kind of blends better in and allows the rest of the figure to kind of flow better, I feel like. And you can kind of have it as the landing gears. And then the back half of the figure is basically just the legs. This is where it kind of benefits, where it's translucent, where you can kind of pretend that these are the kind of thrusters shooting out kind of green fire instead of your traditional like orange red, which is really neat. And just kind of lends into that green aesthetic that he has going on for him. But overall, it's just kind of the legs of the robot mode flipped around. Nothing crazy going on there. And this is the bottom of the figure. Basically just the head there is visible as like a robot component. I guess the arms as well. But overall, kind of a basic, jet mode, but pretty nice. I think for this, we'll give it a 7 out of 10. Now jumping into the value of the figure, I think overall he poses a lot of value. He is a deluxe figure, and he is very unique for the kind of size that they have him in. The trade-off is the transformation and the kind of jet mode not being as kind of intuitive as it could be. But I think overall it poses a lot of value for what you're paying for. The Ember Stone, while being basic, does kind of align itself very well with the figure, and that it's kind of like a gem piece in the center of his chest, which is really cool. The design of him is awesome. I love the color scheme that they have going on, and he has this kind of robe-like regal kind of look to him. I love the kind of runes going through him, so there's a lot going for him for that. It would have been nice maybe for another accessory. Whether or not that would have made sense, not sure. But I think would have added a little bit more value. But for what we have here, I think an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 actually is what we'll go for everything that you get within this figure. Now for a final score for this figure, we're going to give him a 43 out of 50. Very respectable number. For our look at a second prime out of the Age of the Primes line, very awesome. So far I'm very impressed with what I've seen. First we looked at Megatronus, and now Quintus. Now obviously we haven't looked at kind of the release order, so I'm not sure how the kind of first wave of the primes look like. Obviously we do have them, we just didn't look at them yet. But looking at these two figures, I'm very excited to see what the rest of the primes look like, and what the future primes will look like as well. As a figure on its own, love him, great design, and again, it makes me more excited for what the rest of the primes will look like when we actually have them in hand. And I can't wait to kind of have all of them kind of in its own display. That'll look pretty cool with all 13 of them. So very excited for that. But that'll be it for the review. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. and I'll see you in the next review. Have a good one.